Hello everyone, you're welcome to a new program in the Hidden Kinvara series, and today we're going to look at the life and times of Gerry Ryan, a man who brightened the lives of so many people in this community from the late 1940s up until his death in 1998. Now, those of us who knew Gerry remember him as being a very sociable, entertaining man, full of crack, enjoyed life. And we have a few photographs here that show him in that particular persona. He's with here the Sextons, Kevin and Esty and Carmel, at Vintner's social or ball, and he's decked out in his dress suit. He's like a film star out of Hollywood. And in this one here, he's holding court, and I think it must be in Connolly's bar, obviously having the crack with everybody, you know, and he's in great form in it. And there's this one then where he's at the mic and he's addressing people, and you can see the mischievous grin on his face, you know, and that was the Gerry I remember. But what do we really know about the man? Well, what we know was that he was born in this house here, and it hasn't changed much over the years, and we have a number of pictures there where you can see how the house didn't change. And his father was John Ryan, and John Ryan was and his mother Nora Ryan. Now, John was a carpenter in Kinvara, and one of his duties as a carpenter was to make coffins for deceased members of the community. And he's credited with having made the coffins for the Lucknan brothers when they were waked in Heinz's barn in 1920, having been murdered by the auxiliaries, the British auxiliaries. Now, John had his workshop up here, further up on the Gort Road, past the lane, and across from where Peter and Elva Deegan live now. And all the work was done there. Now, Gerry was one of 10 children, and here we have a photograph of them as adults. And they are, from the left, Peter, Tom, Willie, James, Dan, Francie, Oliver, Chrissy, Michael John, and Gerry. And I suppose it was unusual enough in the times that all of them survived into adulthood. Now, it was probably expected, although I'm not sure of this, that Gerry might follow his father into becoming a carpenter, but disability in his right hand meant that he wasn't able to do that. So he had to mark out different paths of life during his life, and he certainly had decided he wasn't going to immigrate. He was going to stay in Ireland and use his intelligence, his wits, his courage, and everything else, talents, to stay here. As a teenager, he's seen here with Michael John Leach in this photograph, and with somebody else whom I don't know, and they set up a puppet show in Kinvara together with Paddy Green and Tom Leach, and they charged 1 penny to each customer who came to see it. And he was then, I suppose, about 16 years old. Following on from his experience of entertaining people with the puppet show, in 1949, at the age of 18, Gerry leased Johnston's Hall from Richie and Tom Johnston and began his career as a cinema proprietor. Many of the films in these days had biblical or religious themes, and Dr. Paddy Green remembered Gerry's first film as The Keys of the Kingdom. Not all the films shown by Gerry had religious themes. I've picked out one which was made in 1952 to illustrate this. This was The Quiet Man. This film was enormously popular here because it was the first film that we knew of that was shot in rural Ireland in this case in Cong on the Galway-Mayo border. People flocked to see it, to see if they could recognise any of the locations. We were very innocent in those days. As well, we wanted to see our most famous Hollywood film actress, Maureen O'Hara, and her leading man, John Wayne. And although it has a lot of old cliched paddywhackery that the Americans used about when they showed films of Irish life, the film was a great success. By 1954, Gerry wanted to have a new cinema at the premises that had housed his father's workshop. He wanted to give his customers a better experience with soft seats and refreshments and all the rest of it. We're lucky to have photographs to show the progress of that work. And on the first series of photographs here, you can see two men with a wheelbarrow working the ground inside, digging up the clay that has to be taken out. And then we see the man with the donkey cart, and the donkey cart being filled up with stuff. And then you see in the photograph Gerry leaning against the wall, supervising the whole exercise. And I think there's a lovely, cute photograph of the donkey bringing out the debris out through the front door of the foyer outside. And so the site was cleared, and then the base of the site was built up, and you can see the blockwork that's there, ready to fit the Nissen hut. Now, Gerry had purchased the Nissen hut, and they were very popular in Ireland after World War II because they were used during the war for billeting soldiers, both in Northern Ireland, American soldiers in Northern Ireland and the LDF in the south. So he was able to get it, I'd say, at a pretty cheap price. Then we go to the front of the building and we see them knocking in the wall at the front. And you see Mrs. O'Grady and child looking at the progress there, because everybody was really interested in this new cinema. It was something magical. And then we have a number of photos here showing the roof going on, the rafters going on the roof of his father's workshop, because it had to be raised up. And you can see the block work that had been put in there to raise it. And then lastly, we see them plastering the front of it, and I think that Tom McCormick is the plasterer, and I think he's assisted by Peter McCormick. I'm not sure now if that's the case, but they're being tended anyway by Paddy Joe Connolly. At last, the cinema was ready for action, and on the night of the cinema was to be open, it was on the 3rd of August 1955. Before the crowd came, there was a picture taken, which I think is a beautiful photograph, showing in the front row Peter Keane, Francie Ryan, John Ryan, and Paddy O'Loughlin, who had the garage over at the Mace garage. And at the back row, Paddy Joe Connolly, Gerry Ryan, and another. Now, I don't know who the other is. Maybe somebody would be able to tell us. And so then the doors opened and the crowds flocked in, and somebody had the common sense to take a photograph of the first night crowd. Now, it's a great picture, but the only ones I know are the ones in the front row, because they're in the cheap seats and the benches. The soft seats are for the adults at the back, and they cost a little bit more. And on the front row, from starting from the left and going towards the right, I see Gerry Ward, Frank Flatley, Jack Nolan, John Joe Curtin, who died there recently, John Fallon, I think it is, Nola Shaughnessy, and then there's two people that I don't know, Kieran McInerney, my neighbour out in Gorchanvo, Brendan Nolan, Jack Nolan's brother, who lived in where Eugene Lamb lives now, Pat Sullivan, the brother of Tom, who died recently, Mike Halvey, who lived across the road from Tully's, Tom Flatley, a brother of Frank's, then there's somebody I don't know there, then Frank Finn, who lived just down the road from the cinema, then Michael Corliss, who lived over in Dungura, and Mary Lynch, who at that time she was John Lynch's daughter, and she worked in Connolly's, and she went to England after that. On the second row, I recognise Nell Fahey, a neighbour of mine from the Glebe. James Morris, I think, with the cap. Rita Nolan, who's a sister of Jack Nolan and Brendan. Vincey Byrne, who died recently. Phil Halvey, a sister of Mike Halvey, who lived across the road from Tully's. In the third row, I recognise Paddy Joe Keane on the extreme left, who'd be Mary Keane's father, Mary Keane from Cartron. I don't know who's next. And then there's Patrick Keane, and I'm sure it's Patrick Keane from Carnamadra. He looks very, very like him. And then towards the middle, there's Paddy Keane, whom I recognise, and Paddy is Mary's brother. And then I recognise Tom Sullivan, and I realise Michael Connolly, and I recognise Joe Mitchell. And then we have to go to the back row before I think I recognise people. And in the middle of the back row, I think that's Willie Kavanagh. It looks like him. And on the left-hand side is Paki Veze, the father of Tom. And I recognise him by his cap, the way he wore his cap. But anyway, we'll get somebody to tell us that. Now, on the first night, the film was Titanic. And there was great interest in this film in Kinvara, because there were a lot of people alive who remembered the incident in 1955, because the Titanic sunk in 1912. So there was people still alive around the place. Now we have another photograph, I think, which is a really good one, of the aftermath of the film, when people are coming out and they're outside the door, and unfortunately they didn't know they were being photographed, or maybe they did and they didn't want to be photographed. But one way or the other, we have this crowd spilling out onto the street, and I recognise Johnny Sullivan in it. I recognise Sean Nolan. I recognise Richie Burke. I recognise Kieran McInerney, my neighbour again, in it. And I notice as well that on the door of the cinema, there's a notice advertising the film, the Titanic, but also giving the name that Gerry gave to his cinema, and it was the Circle Cinema. Now at that stage, I was old enough to join the staff of Gerry's cinema. I was probably about 12 or 11, and I had the job of taking the tickets, which was a real plum job. I remember at the time. I was the envy of all my friends, because my pay was to get to see every film that came to Gerry Ryan's from 1958 maybe up until 1960, until I started doing my inserts, and my mother put her foot down and said that was the end of that. So my memory of it was that there were 4 different kinds of films that Gerry used to get, and the first were the cowboys. Now, we grew up on a diet of films about Hopalong Cassidy. I think a lot of you might remember the name. Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, the Singing Cowboys, and the Lone Ranger and Tonto. And in 1962, Telefishern was established, and because the ESB had been frantically connecting houses all over rural Ireland, by 63 or 64, every house had a television. And so people started to watch the offerings on Telefishern, which was on every night of the week from 6 p.m. until midnight. And so the film interest in the films declined, and Gerry had to look around for another source of income to sustain him. Not to be daunted, entered a new period and a new career. He purchased a premises on the quay down in the Kinvara, under the shelter of Seamount and near Seamount Small Gate, a house that had been a shop run by a lady called Annie Quinn back in the day, and before her it was where John Joe Shaughnessy had started his drapery business before moving across the road to where Shan Eustace has her Healing Harvest now. So Gerry purchased that, and like everything that he did, he was he brought in a whole lot of innovations. And the first of these was he had takeaways. Now takeaways were unheard of in Kinvara. I mean, if you were in Kinvara at that time and you wanted to have a meal, you had to have it in the hotel. You'd be staying in the hotel or staying in Mountain View, the O'Grady's place, where the hotel is now. And you could come in there at night, coming from the dance or anything else, and just order your thing, or order it on the way to the dance, and come in and pick it up and take it away home and eat it. Also, he introduced outside dining to Kinvara. Now, I'm sure not only to Kinvara, but probably most of the country weren't doing outside dining at that particular time. And you can see from those photographs here the pictures of two young lads. Now, they're not the same people in the two photographs, sitting outside having their coffee and scone, or having their ice cream, or whatever they're having, looking down at the scenery, looking down at the bay and looking down at Galway, and relishing the view, the panorama that they had from there, and which Gerry loved so much. And the third thing was he introduced coffee to Kinvara. Now, I would say before Gerry opened that snack bar, nobody in Kinvara, except you were one of the very few people who travelled out of the place, out of the country, nobody took coffee. Everybody was drinking tea, but Gerry introduced coffee. Now, I always thought that it was introduced much later, and it was part of American cultural imperialism, with young lads, driving up in their tractors to the filling station and having their shorts and their baseball caps and going in and ordering coffee to go. But Gerry had it before any of those came into being. So we have a lovely shot of the interior of the snack bar with Paddy Joe Connolly serving two young men at the counter. Now, the guy nearest the counter was my brother Tony, who died sadly about 16 years ago. And the other man at the counter, I think, looks like Paddy Costello, Paddy from Auchnish. Now, he'd be Paddy North, Enda's father. Now, I don't know if it is he, but maybe somebody will be able to tell me at the end if he is the one. So what struck me about it when we were doing the research on it was the numbers of people that came from foreign, faraway places to dine in that restaurant. Was extraordinary. So they came from Australia, all over New Zealand, from Canada, from lots of the provinces in Canada, from the United States, from many of the states in the United States, and from Europe. They came from Norway, Sweden, Germany, Holland, France, Italy, Spain. I mean, it was extraordinary in the late 1960s to think that they were coming from there. And then add to that the numbers of people that came from the UK, from Scotland, England and Wales. And particularly the numbers of people who came from Northern Ireland. Now, there was always a good holiday trade between Northern Ireland and the Republic, because in the summertime, particularly in the month of August, people got away from, in July, not in August, people got away from the north during the marching season, when the orange bands used to run riot through the streets. So they would try to get away from that. But I was amazed at the numbers of them that came through the place. So Gerry was getting so much business that he decided to extend the business and to set up a restaurant called the Old Kinvara Restaurant. Now, this is where we met some kind of problem, because when I inquired about this, some people told me it was located at the back of the snack bar, and other people told me it It was located on the Gort Road where the cinema was. And I didn't know which place to nominate as the spot. But one of the ladies who ate in the old Kinvara restaurant said to Gerry, because I have that written, that he should change the name of the snack bar to the old Kinvara restaurant, because to be more accurate description of what was going on in the place, not just a snack bar. So I've determined that it was in the back room of the snack bar, so that's where the restaurant was. So we're very lucky to have the menu that was available at the time, and I want you to have tears in your eyes at the prices that you had to pay for the price. But I mean, you got first class steaks for £1. You got chicken. You got everything. Every combination you like was actually served there. And my own favourite was the sherry trifle at the end, which went for 10 pence halfpenny. You know, and I mean, Lord save it, I know inflation has increased rapidly since that, but even with inflation, it was still pretty okay for dining out at the time. So we also, Gerry introduced another innovation with regard to the restaurant business, in that he had a visitor's book. And this visitor's book, he asked people to put in their names and to put in their addresses and the country that they came from, and comments about the quality of the service and or the food. If I just look at or read out the locations that people came from, and this one here, you see what I mean. It's now from 1968. Cork, Galway, Killaloe, Belgium, Holland, Germany, Liverpool, Scotland, New York, Ballinderreen, Holland, Belgium, Newtown, Portadown, Killester, Dublin, Oxford. And that's just from 2 pages of it here. And that goes right through it. I spent a night going through the thing there, and I was just amazed at where people came from. Now, Gerry asked people to comment on what they got, and most of the comments are favourable. Some of them are, you know, a little bit halfway house, but most of them are favourable. Such lovely coffee, my mum couldn't do better, for example. A real swinging place, must come back soon for more. Most enjoyable day here. The food is great, and especially the beans and chips. Those are the kind of comments that were made about it. There are 2 comments by people from Kinvara, and I want to pick out those first. And the first one here is from my great friend Paul Shaughnessy. And Paul dined in there in 1968. Service great. Gerry, everything was beautiful. We'll come again. And then we have his brother John. Now John was Paul's twin brother, and he was living in New York, and he was out to have dinner with Gerry one night with his brother-in-law Kenneth Kelly at Gerry's, and he said, "Gerry, I will be thinking of you in New York and all the wonderful times we had here during my holidays." You know, such a very nice kind of a comment. Now, not all comments were favourable like that, and I picked out 2 here for a particular reason. And there was James Shields from Mahara County, Londonderry, and Marlene Gibson from Main Street, Ahull, County Antrim, Northern Ireland. And the first one said, "Pathetic, R.I.P." And the second one said, "Couldn't wait to get out." Now, Gerry was so incensed by that kind of comment that he felt compelled to write a comment himself in his own visitor book, and this is what he wrote. While we are open to all comments, good or bad, I wonder why both of the above cleaned up your plates to the last morsel, then became poetical because you had to pay. Two typical Paisley followers. I would like to see you in your environment, in which I would most surely wish to use the same comments, but would decline. I would decline from doing so and leave. Glass is transparent. Fish are uncomfortable out of water. Thank God all our northern friends are not like you. Signed, the proprietor. That gives you some idea of the kind of comment that was being made. So the last entries in the visitors book were in 1969, in July 1969. The numbers were obviously way down, and the reason why the numbers were down so much were that the troubles had started in the north in 1968-69, and of course they were covered on television all over the world. And because they were, people got frightened about coming to Ireland at all. And so the markets from Canada and the United States dried up, and the markets from all over Europe dried up. And even the people from the north, the Catholics from the north who used to come, didn't come anymore because there was the danger of traveling in the north during the troubles. And so Gerry had to make the decision he sold Annie Quinn's. I see there's a photograph that we have showing the place up for sale in Annie Quinn's. I have that. He left the cinema and he left the restaurant business. So where did he go from here? In 1954, Father Patrick Peyton, came to Ireland. He had been around Australia, New Zealand, and all the English-speaking world, Canada and all over the States. And he brought with him his rallies for the Rosary, the family Rosary. Now, this was the Marian year, the year of veneration for the Virgin Mary. And so he decided to come to Ireland with it, and he had 30 rallies around the country, all of which were attended by thousands of people. So we have one photograph here for Gort, which you can see, and the rally was so big in Gort that he wasn't able to fit them into the church, so he had to conduct his sermon on the square in Gort. I'm sure there was a lot of people from Kinvara in 1954 up in Gort for that rally. Now, what he was promoting was the family Rosary, and he had a mantra which he used, that the family that prays together stays together, and the family Rosary was the means by which this would be achieved. So it was a major tour of Ireland, if you like. And we have here a short little excerpt from the Pathé News showing, which is about Father Peyton's very last rally in Ireland, which took place in, appropriately enough, Our Lady's Island in County Wexford.
40,000 pilgrims come to Our Lady's Island, Wexford, to hear an address by Father Peyton at his final Rosary rally in Ireland. For centuries, people have come to this ancient shrine, but never before have so many gathered on a single day. In procession, the pilgrims walk around the island. People have journeyed from Mayo, Limerick, Cork, and indeed from all over the country for the rally which coincides with the opening of the Marian pilgrimage to the Shrine of Our Lady. Near the ruins of a Norman castle, a magnificent altar has been erected, and here the crowds gather to hear a farewell address by Father Peyton. This is his 21st rally in Ireland, and also his last. the Bishop of Ferns sits with other church dignitaries. During the service, the pilgrims promise to offer the rosary every day in their homes. Thus, Father Peyton says goodbye to his own people in the perfect setting of Our Lady's Island.
The way that Irish people took to this particular thing of the family rosary, and it got him thinking about how he might improve the quality of the experience for people in their houses. And so he came up with this idea of making a grotto, and you can see the pictures of the grotto, you know, that he made and sold, where he would show the Blessed Virgin, the vision of the Blessed Virgin that Sister Bernadette had, and Bernadette praying to her. In other words, the grotto at Lourdes, to make a miniature grotto of Lourdes. And for people, he would sell that through places of pilgrimage to all over the country, and particularly in Knock, which was dedicated to the Virgin Mary. So, you know, I've heard reliable stories that he sold literally thousands of those. And my colleague Gerry Wallace told me that they had one in their house in Ballyvaughan, and that the cost of it was £1. I don't know what it cost to make, but they were very tidy things, and they were, you know, very striking little icons, and they were very popular. So he also then branched into doing plaster grottos of the Sacred Heart, to kind of, I don't know if it said to replace the pictures of the Sacred Heart that were in every house in Ireland. And he did ones of the Christmas scene with the Blessed Virgin and Saint Joseph with the baby Jesus in the crib, and Christmas candles, electric candles beside it. So that was his first foray into plaster work, working in plaster. And he found that he had a gift, a real gift for it. And so that propelled him into the next stage of his working life. We're coming here to see the Ryanville Lodge, the house where Gerry Ryan lived and worked in the latter years of his life. And we're coming here to visit his grandnephew, David Ryan, who owns this house now. And David has allowed us to come in here and have a look at the house of an artist.
Hello, John. How are you?
Thank you very much. You're
welcome to Ryanville Lodge.
Thank you very much. You're a great man to have us
No
inside
problem.
the place here. We're here in Gerry's workshop, and it's where it was the nerve centre, I presume, David. So tell us a bit about how it came to be, and something about the icons that we can see here.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, as you said, John, this was the workshop, but it was only part of the whole process. So when Gerry was building this house, basically he designed it and built it to suit his artistic process, I suppose.
Yeah.
So downstairs there was a whole big kind of production, the heavy mould pouring and kind of the dusty, dirty stuff happened.
Yeah.
He had in the house, and he designed it, a secret staircase that led directly up to here, so he didn't have to come through the main house. So he could kind of do all the dirty work down here, and then up here was where he kind of finished his pieces. So the stuff would come up here once the moulds had set, and it would hang to dry on these beams. So you'd come up here as a child, it was like an Aladdin's cave, just the whole ceiling full with, you know, grottos, but also all the other stuff that he used to do.
Yeah.
The finishing piece then, or the next phase in the process, he had benches all along the windows looking over the burn, and he used to sit and he used to paint and mass produce stuff, but also he'd do bespoke
That'd
pieces.
be now from here.
Correct.
Up here,
exactly. Exactly. From up here, this is where he would have finished all his pieces. So I suppose one of the most amazing things about Gerry, and there's a long list of amazing things, but he was completely self-taught. So all of the techniques, all of the painting, all of the production, that was all self-taught. And I remember, for example, the bathroom downstairs, he taught himself how to do a technique called mosaicing. And I remember he showing me the book. He painted the entire bathroom to feel like you were walking into a marble sanctuary. Now, 30 years later, unfortunately, it had to be painted and it disappeared and it killed us to do it. But this was just the skill set that he had. So as you can see, some of the stuff that he has up on the walls here, and these are only samples. I mean, again, you couldn't keep everything, but he had the different techniques to pick.
All of those are made of plaster.
Absolutely.
Let's start with that first.
This is exactly the point. Everything on the wall, it's all made of plaster. But Gerry would have had the skill. So this is painted to a stone effect. He would paint something to look marble. He would paint something to look wooden, timber, different types of timber, different types of metals. So basically, you look like you're buying a beautiful metal mirror or timber cornicing, but it was all made from the same plaster down in that garage as I described on the ground floor, brought up here, dried, and then finished in whatever the style was for the order for the client. So it's incredible stuff.
And he did boats and chariots.
Absolutely everything. Now they would have all been based on molds, but also Gerry would have created his own molds. So if there was a statue or if there was something that he liked or a carving, he could get a mold created of that, then mass produce that, and then paint it up to whatever the client wanted. So you'll see further down here some of the plaques as examples of them. It's the same plaque, but it looks metal in one, it looks marble in another, it looks stone in another, and this is all part of the skill. This is
he was brilliant.
Just the artistry.
No, we'll go down here and we'll just have a look at some of those down here.
Certainly.
Okay. I see Dungora here, David.
Absolutely, and actually, John, one of the stories I love about Gerry was back in the 1950s when Dungora was only a ruin.
Yeah.
Gerry made a pitch to buy it. And he couldn't raise the funds, he couldn't raise the financing. Now, like with all of Gerry's stories, you take them with a pinch of salt, but he couldn't end up buying Dungora. And that's why he decided to build Ryanville. He wanted to build his own castle.
His own castle.
So, what I was talking to you about a few minutes ago was just some of the pieces. And basically, again, this is the artistic piece. So the production of them was one thing. You know, to paint them up to look like stone, to make, you talked about the picture, to look like timber, to look like metal, to look like marble, but it's all actually just plaster.
All
it's
plaster.
mass-produced plaster.
It's amazing,
It really is, absolutely incredible. And then later in his life, he started to get into the stained glass. So while some of these stained glass windows aren't his, some of them are. That was the next phase.
And that one there, would that one there be his?
That one there, the two on the garage door downstairs, yeah. And I remember him talking to me about this. This was his next big thing. You know, he was getting excited about the stained glass phase. So he did house signs. He just a serial entrepreneur and innovator.
Are there any house signs in this building here?
There aren't, I'm afraid. There's no.
We have a photograph, I think, of them anyway.
I'm sure you do.
In the album, I think there's one in the album. Yeah. So, can we look at what's outside here on the
balcony? Yeah, please, out to the balcony. So this was Gerry's balcony, and this was his view down over the village.
Oh my! Look at this, and had a view of the entire town down there
of course.
From the back. You know, place that you wouldn't normally.
He could look down at his sister Francie in the post office, his home house over here, his nephew's post office. He just had a view and out over the bay. So it was his pride and joy. He absolutely loved it up here. So.
Oh God, yeah! And I see the bay, like being able to see the bay. From up there. I would never have thought it. You know, it never dawned on me
how high it is. It really is. The house really is set up on a height. So it's incredible.
Now, we've just come down from Gerry's workshop to this wonderful place here. It's like a palace here. So, David, tell us a bit about this. What are we looking at here?
Sure, John. So, I mentioned earlier on that Gerry designed the house to suit his needs as a professional, as an artist, and we talked about the production side of it. The house was also his shop window. It was where he was able to showcase his experience and showcase his abilities. So, there's two rooms in particular. This room, we'll call it the main bedroom, although it wasn't Gerry's bedroom. He didn't actually sleep in here.
Right.
But this room and the canopy, all completely done by hand. The walls, everything. I mean, it's overdone. But it's overdone for a reason. You bring a client in, you show him or her around, you show them what is possible and what can be done, and then they pick the elements of it that they want to contract Gerry to do.
It must have taken ages to do that.
I can imagine, absolutely. You know, I mean, every single one of these pieces are individually moulded, individually cast, individually painted, and then the whole thing is put together. So it's an absolutely fascinating room, but Gerry never actually slept in this bedroom.
Yeah. No, I know Carmel told me that this was essentially for customers. You know, that would come in and he'd bring them up here and he'd say, "Look, this is what we can do." Or some form of this.
This is it. And then originally, again, you know, it's 30 years later. It had to be painted, and you couldn't. But these were all individually hand painted, and in its day. And we have photos, and I think you have some of the photos. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. So, and something I love. The head of Michelangelo, or Michelangelo's David.
David, that's right, yeah.
So that was in a cornice or an alcove designed when he was building the house. He obviously had this. He had Saint Philomena's statue, and he built parts of the house around the items that he wanted to showcase and display.
You know what it shows me about him, though, that he was very methodical, you know, and the length of time it took to do something didn't matter as long as it was perfect.
As a perfectionist, absolutely, you're dead right. A perfectionist, and you know, you hear innovator, entrepreneur, artist, but he was also an archivist. He was a historian. He was a filmmaker. I mean, the skill sets. It was incredible, absolutely incredible.
Oh, yeah. Oh no, if he was in a world where he had the opportunity, you know, Kinvara didn't have that. To indulge. I mean, he did things that nobody else here would have thought of.
Nobody else anywhere.
Back in his time.
Way ahead of his time, actually.
Yeah.
But he loved Kinvara. He was Kinvara. He was, you know, the original artist, the original kind of culture guru in the village. So
he definitely was. Now we've moved from the bedroom down to the sitting room, and we're particularly interested here in the ceiling, the decoration in the ceiling around the light, David. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Absolutely, John. This is my absolute favourite part of the whole house. And there was months and months and months of work gone into it. So this ceiling, every single individual piece was an individual production. The whole thing designed, put together, painted. It's just absolutely extraordinary.
I wonder how he did it. Did he put up a platform or something there?
As far as I'm aware, that's exactly how he did it. And then just even if you think about it from a design perspective, that every single one of these pieces had to be made, measured, and the whole thing put up. It's just extraordinary. I don't know of anything like it.
No, I mean the whole ceiling almost is taken up with it.
Correct.
And again, it was for the benefit mainly of his customers.
Absolutely, this was another showroom. This was for people to come in and see in quite an extravagant way, an extraordinary way, what could be done. Yeah. And then they would pick elements of it and design their own equivalent. Although I don't think there's anything quite as amazing as this anywhere.
Yeah. It'd be like some of the houses now that are going up around here, you know, for the last few years.
I wonder would it suit them? What do you think?
Well, they're big enough, you know, whether to suit them or not, I don't know. But definitely, like, I can just imagine like a fellow working up there, maybe sitting down, lying in his back, working over it, and the patience that you need to get all those little details in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then after all of that was done, the painting of it. So again, these individual pieces were hand painted. And
how are they connected to the ceiling?
With plaster.
Plaster.
So they're plastered up.
They're plastered up.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah.
God, yeah. And like the way that they're all properly organised and centralised.
And then as it leads down to the walls, you can see it's layered down. I mean, the whole ceiling is really a construction. An amazing piece. So.
Oh, the more I see it, the more impressed I am by this man.
I do love it. It's my favourite, just to sit here in this room and you'd stare. Forget the TV, you just stare at the ceiling.
Yeah, it's lovely.
It's inspiring stuff, really.
This is very interesting. This is Gerry's kitchen, and over here on the left, which when you come in one door, you can imagine Gerry putting down the baked beans and toast and bringing them over here to the table. But when you're at the table, David, my goodness, there's a total change. This place is exactly what I think the home and the kitchen of an artist would be like.
Yeah, it's a lovely description of it, and I think it might have been his cigar he was putting down to sit over here. But you're right. And again, like the other rooms that we've looked at, the vast majority of what you see here is plaster, but painted to look like timber and painted to look like mock stone. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful space, and his various collections of bits and pieces up along the shelf up there. So yeah, this is the heart of the house. This is where Gerry would have lived.
And you'll be sitting down here now, and I'm just imagining it now at home, sitting down here, eating my rashers and tomato in the morning, and surrounded by this. And I guess what I would have thought an artist. This is how an artist would live. You know. Yeah. Our house now would be terribly bereft of all those things, but nevertheless.
No, you're right, and as I mentioned earlier on, as a child coming in here, it was just such an Aladdin's cave of just fascinating bits and pieces and creations. So Again, a unique space, an absolutely unique space. So, and very Gerry, just very, very Gerry.
Isn't it very Gerry?
Yeah, you can still feel him here. You can feel him in this room. So, in the whole house, indeed. So.
Yeah. Now, David, since we're getting ready to go and leave this wonderful, wonderful house, have you any memories of Gerry that you'd like to share with us before we go?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about him as we walk through the house, so you have a sense of him, and I know you've done some other elements in other parts of the film, but Gerry was an absolute unique character. He was a visionary. He was an artist. We've said that, but he was outspoken. He was, he stood up for what he believed in. He was unique, and he was ahead of his time. I know that's a cliche, but he genuinely was ahead of his time.
And he was great crack.
He was great crack. Above all, he was a great crack. You're dead right.
I remember in the bar. Now you'd see him there, and he was
holding court.
Absolutely,
and you could be one end of the village, and you'd hear "yoo-hoo, dum-dee, and that was his catch call, and you knew there was Gerry, and you were about to have a wonderful afternoon. You were about to have a fun afternoon. So a wonderful character, absolutely. We're incredibly proud of him, and delighted that this film is happening.
Oh, great! That's lovely. On Gerry's mortuary card, there's a short rhyme, an extract from a poem, Afterglow, by the poet Helen Lowry Marshall. I want Gerry's great-grandniece, Claude Ryan, to quote this short poem as it sums up what Gerry hoped his influence on the Kinvara community would be after he was no longer with us. So Claude, over to you.
I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when life is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly down the ways of happy times and laughing times and bright and sunny days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun, of happy memories that I leave when my life is done.